Welcome to From the Den podcast, providing Bears and NFL fans alike with compelling news, discussion, and debate. I'm your co-host Benjamin, joined alongside my dear friend and co-host Oren.
Hey Benjamin, let's get right into it. As always, kickoff starts now.
For the fifth pick, the Miami Dolphins select Tua Tagovailoa, and I have to give this a B+ because I think skill-wise he's great. His strength may not be scrambling, but he can scramble. He can throw the ball wherever he wants. He reminds me a bit of Steve Young and Drew Brees combined, which is a huge praise, especially considering I think he can throw. He's a very smart quarterback. I think he has the running ability, but why I give him a B, first of all I give him a B+ is for the Dolphins. I think that for a few factors, it all stems from injuries. What scares me the most about him is he's been injured multiple times. And if you want a franchise quarterback who, if he wasn't injured, I don't know, he wouldn't be number one. I think he would be over Tua, which is crazy to say, but I think that skill-wise he's great, but I'm worried about the injuries. And when you look at the Dolphins' offensive line, they don't really have anyone. They picked Austin Jackson with pick 18, but I don't really like him, and he's more of a project. Which means that Tua is going to be taking a lot of hits, which is the opposite of what you want for Tua. And I don't know if he keeps getting injured. I just really don't think that it's a good situation for him. And the reason I didn't give a lower grade is because his skill is just so great.
Yeah.
Passed him up, and they need a quarterback. So I think that Tua was the good pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Dolphins' biggest need was quarterback, although they did have a lot of holes, and that's why they ended up with the fifth pick in the first place. And as for value, I think also Tua was going to go around 5, so that makes sense. But just for the player talent, well, Tua has undeniable ceiling. He just is so injury prone, and that's why I gave him an A- rather than an A. Basically for the same reason that you gave Jeff Okudah an A-.
Yeah.
I think actually Joe Burrow is a step above Tua, even when Tua was playing healthy. I think the way Joe Burrow played last season was better than the way Tua has ever played. So for that reason, I just gave it an A-, and also because of the injury risk. But I think I'd still rather have an injury-prone Tua than a healthy Justin Herbert. I guess we'll get into Herbert soon. So that's why I only gave it an A- rather than going as far down to a B+. Okay, so now I'm just going to go right into Justin Herbert with the Chargers selection. Let me be honest. I really am not a very big fan of Justin Herbert. I think he has a lot of bust potential. I think if a team drafted him and waited a few years, waited for him to develop, then he does have a lot of potential. But he was just so raw last year. And although if you just look at his statistics alone, you could think he played well. I mean, he did play pretty well to get drafted at 6. But a lot of his yards and touchdowns came from the offense that Oregon was running, where they had him in a lot of screen passes and just easy throws. If you look at the Colorado game, for example, he actually played very well, and he was making NFL-caliber throws. But there were a lot of other games that opposed that, where he was playing really terribly. And really, I just don't have enough confidence in Justin Herbert as a quarterback. That's why I really lowered it down on the player talent category. As for value, I guess that's where the consensus would have him going. I mean, the stuff was all over the board. Some people had Patriots taking him around like 23, but most people would say he was going top 10, top 15. So 6 really isn't that crazy for player value. And he does address the team's needs, but really I'm not a fan of having Justin Herbert as your quarterback right off the bat. I think he needs a few years to develop. And for that reason, I gave the Chargers a B.
Yeah, so what I would say is if I could compare him to anyone, I would compare him to Trubisky. I think that if you really look at it, sometimes you watch him and you say, wow, that throw is a throw that not all quarterbacks can make. But other times you think, wow, I know not to throw it to that spot. Like sometimes you question him, and I think that the Packers would have been a great situation for him. Now we'll get to Jordan Love later, and I know the Packers, it wouldn't have slide that far, and either way, the Packers don't really want to trade that much to get him. But I think if he sat behind Aaron Rodgers, that would really help him. And what I think about him is there's going to be really depends on what situation he's put in, because I think that he could be put in a position where he can become great quarterback. but also he can be put in a position where he could be a terrible quarterback. And honestly, I think I'm going to give him a C minus. The
Oh,
Chargers.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow, okay. I
I'm
thought
gonna,
that I was being all mean to him with giving him a B, but I guess I
no.
was nice.
Because
I'm really not that hot on him with the B. Let me clarify. Sorry, you can go on.
yeah. But what I would say is why I got him so low is the Chargers. I know that they have the sixth pick and they didn't have a great record, but I feel like they're a win now team. They have Eckler, who's a good running back. Their offensive line isn't great, but they have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Their defense they didn't play great, but they have Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram, Derwin James. They have all the pieces, and honestly, I don't understand why they did that poorly last year. I say you could put it mostly on Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I think Philip Rivers isn't very great in the clutch and such.
Yeah, but and Tyrod Taylor is they're probably going to be their starter for a bit. But what what I would say is that for a win, the reason I didn't give him I think if it was another team like the Dolphins who were trying to rebuild, I would give it like a B, like what you did. But I think the situation is so bad because the Chargers are not in a build for the future; they're in a win now situation.
Well,
And
I think maybe just playing devil's advocate or defending the Chargers here, they think that Justin Herbert is a step up from Tyrod Taylor. And if you're having that win now mentality, they think that getting a great quarterback is the way to win now rather than sticking with Tyrod Taylor, as they weren't even able to play well with Phillip Rivers, who I would say is probably better than Tyrod Taylor in most
no,
situations.
you're right. But when you look at it, they're one of the Chargers' biggest needs was offensive tackle,
Hmm.
and there were great offensive tackles available. And I
That's
felt
fair.
like I know that quarterback is such an important position. It really is. But they could have went in free agency and targeted someone, but they didn't. And I
Hmm.
felt like the fact that they didn't means that they want to be with Tyrod Taylor, but they didn't. They want Justin Herbert. And Justin Herbert, I feel like the only way that he can fully unlock his potential is like what I said, if you were on the Packers or a team that doesn't need a quarterback right now, but the Chargers need a quarterback right now. And that's why I give it a C minus because it's just not the right fit. And I don't think he's a great player, but he does have the potential to be great.
Okay. That's fair for the most part. We can move on.
So the Carolina Panthers selected Derek Brown, defensive tackle from Auburn, and I have to give that a B plus because I think that what's great about him is so versatile. He can play nose tackle, defensive end. That's what makes him so great. But the only concern or problem that I would say is not necessarily him. It's that I feel like Isaiah Simmons would have been even better. Isaiah Simmons, I get that you're talking about versatile, but Isaiah Simmons plays every position besides defensive tackle. He
Hmm.
played almost practically every position in college. He ran a 4.39 40-yard dash. He is fast. He's great. And he played middle linebacker. If they want to put him at middle linebacker, he would have stepped in and replaced Luke Kuechly. And I'm not saying he would have been as good as Luke Kuechly because Luke Kuechly is a future
Yeah,
Hall
yeah,
of
yeah. I know. I understand. It's just
but
a
I think
comparison.
that as a fit wise, I think Isaiah Simmons would have been better. But I'm not taking away from Derek Brown because I think Derek Brown can be very, very, very good. That's why I give him the B plus.
I actually really like this pick. Derek Brown is one of my favorite defensive players in all of this draft. And the Panthers, one of their most needed positions, or uh, their most needed position overall, is defensive tackle. So I think this really makes sense to draft Derek Brown. And I gave him an A. I think he really showed himself in college as a great NFL prospect. And I'm excited to see what he can do on this Panthers defense. I think he can really take it to the levels that it's been at in years previous.
What?
All right. So now with the Cardinals, you were talking about Isaiah Simmons, and you gave Derek Brown a B plus because they didn't take Isaiah Simmons, basically. Well, I'm giving the Cardinals a B plus, coincidentally, for taking Isaiah Simmons. I still like Isaiah Simmons, but I think that the Cardinals they could have focused on taking a defensive tackle or even an offensive tackle to just elevate their offense a little bit more than Isaiah Simmons. I do love Isaiah Simmons as a defensive player. I think he's a freak, but I think that the Cardinals could have focused on a different position rather than the outside linebacker. And for this reason, I'm giving him a B plus.
So what I will say is that people like to compare Isaiah Simmons to Brian Urlacher, a speedy linebacker who's just a great linebacker. And I think that as a Bears fan, you know that all Bears have had great, great, great defenses,
Hmm.
and they all stem from the middle linebacker. The middle linebacker is the quarterback of the defense, and you could say that most people say that because they call the plays, but really, a defense's success usually
Yeah.
almost all great defenses have a very, very, very good middle linebacker. And I think that the Cardinals, I really like Kyler Murray. I think they got DeAndre Hopkins. They did get DeAndre Hopkins. I think that they have a good offense. I like Cliff Kingsbury. Their defense is okay, but if they want to elevate it, I think the position of need is Isaiah Simmons, and he's the perfect guy.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say is I'm giving this an A+. I think that Isaiah Simmons is one of my favorite players in the draft, and I really, really, really do believe that he's going to be great. And I think that especially for Arizona, who wants to bolster up their defense, who's in a win-now situation, especially in the hardest division in the NFL, they need to have someone who can really facilitate their defense. When you play against San Francisco, the middle linebacker usually the middle linebacker usually guards around, he guards like the middle, or he's there to stop the run or to like not guard the quarterback, but what's it called? Being like spy on the quarterback. When you play Wilson, you need to spy on him. When you play the 49ers, you need a run stopping linebacker. And I think that, especially in that division, I think that this position is such a need.
Yeah, okay.
If you enjoyed this episode of From the Den, please remember to subscribe, comment, and like this video.
Or, if you're a Packers fan, remember to dislike and leave a nasty comment. Click the links on the screen to access additional content.